Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host here. We got Alan Saunders on today. It's been seen Aaron Rodgers throwing with DK Metcalf. Does that make it imminent that he's coming to the Steelers? We talk about that, how Mike Tomlin and Omar addressed the quarterback situation now that the free agency situation went as it did, and Omar opens up about the comp pick strategy the Steelers might be using here. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. Right now, new customers can get $200 back in bonus bets when you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. Check out more on them later. As I said before, joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders. He's here. He's actually not here. He's in Palm Springs, Florida, chilling at the NFL owners meeting, big wigging it, hobnobbing it. I'm running out of other things to describe it. But Alan, how's it not going down in Florida?
There we go. That's a little bit. It's going good. It's just the normal. I'm used to this lifestyle. It's no big deal. No big deal at all.
No big deal at all, he says. You do know I just grabbed a screenshot, and that is absolutely going in the thumbnail of this episode. But while you guys are in Florida, a prominent Steeler and a potential future prominent Steeler were doing throwing workouts in California. And that was, of course, Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf, that being reported all across the news. Aaron Rodgers working with DK Metcalf. And Alan, when something like that happens, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a weird dude. Maybe it means nothing, but I have a hard time thinking this one means nothing.
Of all of the gin joints in all of the world, right? I mean, there's no chance that's a coincidence, right? That's 100% intentional. That at the very least, and I think our buddy Nick Farabaugh said it very well, quarterbacks who are going to retire are not out there working with random wide receivers on March 31st. Exactly. That feels like a very strong sign that the man thinks he wants to play this year. And I think we've known that the options for him really are the Steelers, retire, or don't sign with the team until maybe training camp or the start of the season, wait for somebody else to get injured, something like that. The fact that it's DK Metcalf, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to read into that it seems pretty likely that he's going to be joining the Steelers.
Yeah, same here. I really think that this is just another sign that this is kind of in the works, and they're just waiting to announce it, or he's waiting to announce it for whatever reason he so chooses. But looking at that seems like a very telltale sign. Now, Alan, one thing that was proposed to me on yesterday's show that I actually kind of wanted to get your way in on. One of our listeners called in and asked if I thought that the lack of an announcement, if there was an underground agreement between the Steelers and Rodgers that there is a deal signed, but they are just refusing to announce it because they want to leave the rest of the NFL guessing going into the NFL draft, and that maybe this. And so I was like, look, I don't think that this is that convoluted. I don't think the Steelers are being that crafty. However, I do think Omar and Mike Tomlin are sitting there saying, yeah, what are we going to do, guys? What do you think we're going to do? You think we're going to draft Jackson Dart? Go ahead, think that. And I do think they're taking advantage of it, but I don't think this was some great crafted plan for, hey, Aaron, just sit out a couple weeks and let people stew over this.
Well, I can say this. I don't think a deal is signed. A deal signed means paperwork gets generated. Other people have to be involved in the process. Word gets out. Doesn't matter how badly you want to keep it a secret. So, I mean, that's not plausible. The idea that they have like a handshake deal to say, hey, look, I'm going to take this, but I just want to make the announcement on my own time. That's not totally crazy. That's not like absurd to think about. Really, what is changing for the Steelers between now and the day of the draft? What is different for the Steelers on September 1st if Aaron Rodgers signs today if Aaron Rodgers had signed 2 weeks ago or if Aaron Rodgers signs on April 24th. Like, it doesn't really matter to them. Like, I know the fan base is up in arms about this, and everybody's like, why won't they just get it done? They're not in a hurry because it doesn't matter. Nothing is happening in April. It's completely like, so I think there's no reason for the Steelers not to say, do whatever you want. Take as long as you want. You want to wait so you can announce it on Pat McAfee show, you can do that. You want to go on another darkness retreat and wait until you emerge into the light, so you can do that too. You want to travel the world and make your announcement cliff diving in New Zealand, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, it's no sweat to them. There's nowhere else for him to go. There's nowhere else for them to, no one else for them to get. This is just the only thing to happen.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what the situation is. And again, I don't like you said, the Steelers, they're in no rush. On top of whether or not it puts, it keeps people, at bay or makes them think that the Steelers could do something crazy at quarterback in the NFL draft. I think they're just in the situation. Like, even if he ends up choosing to retire, they're like, cool, we'll roll with Mason Rudolph. We'll figure it out. It's all right. The situation is what it is. And we'll talk more about how this was handled and how the Steelers responded to it. But ultimately, again, this is what you and I had been talking about, and Nick Farabaugh had been talking about it with me. A lot of people have, but like, bottom line is that the Steelers were not selling out for this being the big quarterback move year. They were not hung up on this being did they want the guys that they want that they wanted? Sure. Like, that could have worked out, differently. And again, we'll talk about that in the next segment. But I just think this harkens back to, their plan is more so focused on the rest of the roster and building this team up for when they want to make that quarterback move. And again, I think there was some illuminating things that kind of talked about that in the owners' meetings that we've seen here. But to me, that's the overlying thing here that people should be paying attention to. Not, is Aaron Rodgers holding the Steelers hostage or anything like that? I don't think that they care to enough to be held hostage.
They have they can go wherever they want to go. There's just nowhere else to go. They got in the car. They're like, yeah, we want this. There's nothing else. Like, there's no drama to this situation at all, despite everyone freaking out about it.
Exactly. Now, I do want to talk about how the Steelers discussed how they handled the quarterback situation, because if you were to compare it to what they were saying at the end of the season and then at the combine when we spoke to Omar Khan, there are some questions to be asked. And you guys asked them while you were in Florida. We'll get to that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Again, monarchmoney.com for code LOCKEDONNFL to get half off your first year at monarchmoney.com. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, again, is in Florida for NFL owners meetings. And Alan, you guys got to ask a lot of different questions, but I thought it was interesting, the follow-up questions that were asked about how the Steelers did handle the quarterback situation, because the Steelers, we know that Mike Tomlin said that, Justin Fields is a capable starter. He talked about Russell Wilson, at the year end of the season end press conference. And then when we talked to Omar Khan back in, at the combine, he alluded to, like, look, we're, there's a pursuit there for Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. They're both free agents. You never know what could happen. And then they didn't get either of them. And that kind of goes into you never know what can happen. But when Tomlin answered, when he was asked about it, he said, I know what we said about Russell and Justin, but it didn't pan out that way. Such is life in our game, and particularly in free agency. We'll continue to explore all of our options in running that room out. Alan, what did you get a sense from how they responded about not getting either of those guys? Because at this point, landing with Aaron Rodgers, yeah, I think that they're not too hung up about it at this point. But did you get a sense that they are kind of just like, yeah, it is what it is, that it wasn't that big a deal, or do you think that there is a bit of a spilt milk here that they're trying to cover up?
I'll explain it this way. Here in Florida, sharing a space with Nick Farabaugh, our pal, and I went to walk to the convenience store to get a drink, and I said, "Do you want anything?" He said, "Yeah, give me a Diet Pepsi." And I came back and said, "They didn't have any Diet Pepsi. I got you a Diet Coke instead." Like that's basically what happened to the Steelers this offseason, the quarterback. Like no one was expecting too much of any of these guys. The price on Justin Fields was higher than they thought it was going to be. They decided they preferred Aaron Rodgers to Russell Wilson, so they pursued that path. But there was never any expectation that any of these guys that was available to them was going to be any better than what they had last year or was going to take them somewhere they haven't been before. It was just who's going to play quarterback. That's it. And it didn't really matter at the end of the day which one of them they ended up with or if they don't end up with any of them. And that's kind of how they've approached it.
And I agree with this, and this is kind of where I think the Steelers have put themselves. Now, some people might say that's incompetence. That's not planning for the quarterback room. I don't think it's not planning, Alan, but I do think that if you're a Steelers fan, are you preparing yourself to be frustrated for most this year? Sure, I get that because you want this QB haze that they've been in since Ben Roethlisberger, not even since he retired, since he got old. You want that's really when he got hurt. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
In 2019, when he got hurt, that's when this entire process started. Because even in 2018, when they missed the playoffs, you at least had Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball all over the field with Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster and that crew. But when I look at how the Steelers' quarterback position has been, Alan, I get why people are frustrated and impatient. But bottom line is, I think you don't want to rush yourself out, try to rush yourself out of a situation into another bad situation that just ties you up for a few more years, because that's kind of what happened with Kenny Pickett. They went and picked the guy in a draft that everyone acknowledged was a down quarterback year draft. They went and got the guy that they thought would be drafted higher. It didn't work out, and now they're back to the drawing board. And that's a first round pick that they don't have in the building with them, helping them build the roster to be ready for that next quarterback.
Yeah, you said people think this is a lack of a plan. That's the opposite. This is a plan. This is a lack of acting without a plan. Like they looked at the situation. They don't have a high draft pick. It's not a deep quarterback class. Not likely to be anyone worth taking at that position at number 21. The free agent class, not impressive. Sam Darnold gets $100 million after one kind of okay year in Minnesota that I doubt he could replicate in Pittsburgh without those offensive weapons and that offensive scheme. So what were the other options? Like, I understand not being happy with what you're getting, but what did you want them to do? Like, what would have been better? There's nothing out there. I think the fact that they don't look like they're going to reach for another quarterback in the first round when maybe they shouldn't be is a huge step forward and a sign that they've learned their lesson from last time. And they say, you know what? This looks like a really good draft for defensive tackle. Yeah, maybe not so good a quarterback. Next year looks good. All right, let's try that. Like, I think this is a lesson learned and a step forward. Now, that doesn't mean the plan's going to work out. Like, you can get into the 26th draft and, maybe you can't make the trade you want. Maybe you miss on a guy. Like, it's not like a top 15 quarterback. Gosh, the NFL is littered with failed top 15 quarterbacks. It's not like that's some kind of sure thing, but I think the plan is pretty clear.
No, I agree. I think the plan is pretty clear, and we'll get to the comp picks part of that plan in the next segment. But I look at the quarterbacks and I think, hey, the situation that could they reach for Shedeur Sanders? Could they get this guy? And this is another question I answered yesterday. Someone I was asking, are the Steelers gearing up for Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe in the first round? Because Some people are mocking him there. And Alan, I say, hey guys, let's use context clues right now. Everything the Steelers have done is said they're setting up for the future. Not that they're trying to make this the go all in year where they have that quarterback situation working out for them. Also, again, this quarterback draft class was always supposed to be a down year. Like I remember this time last year when we were talking about quarterbacks and where the Steelers were, we were even saying that Justin Fields and or Russell Wilson, now that they were with the Steelers, one of them needed to last 2 years because next year's quarterback draft class wasn't going to be it. And here we are. And now people are trying to say, oh, well, Tyler Shuck should just go in the first round. And I'm just like, everybody, calm down. Don't buy into the quarterback hype. And that's what happens every year when you don't have a quarterback and there's just random quarterbacks available. Everyone thinks that, hey, this guy is my guy, so he's going to be the guy. I liked a couple plays that he made in X game that I watched one time, and that's going to make him the franchise guy. But I think this is where the front office has to stick to their guns, trust that the guys they're scouting for next year, one, become available and be ready to pounce when they do. But again, I'm with you. The way the Steelers have operated shows that they do have a plan. It's just a plan that I think that Steelers fans don't like because they want their wins and they want them now.
Yeah, and I do expect them to draft a quarterback. I think that'll be part of this plan, but it's not going to be early. They don't have a second-round pick. I doubt it'll be a first-round pick. Maybe in the third round. Honestly, I kind of think it starts in day 3 for me. And I think there are players there that will be interesting. Will Howard, who they just saw at Ohio State, he had a really good college football playoff. If you just look at the guy over the last 4 games, he looks like a pretty viable option. Now, if you look before that, it doesn't look so great. If you look at Quinn Ewers, 5-star guy coming out of high school, all the talent in the world, hasn't really figured out how to put it together. Still in there somewhere. Like, it's not an easy transition. Like, it's not like it's a sure thing, but these are shots they can take. They probably will take something like that. And I think that's reasonable for them to do, but that doesn't have anything to do with who's going to be like quarterback in 2025. Nobody you're taking as a day 3 pick, you're likely to shove into the starting lineup unless things go really sideways. So, yeah, it's just about taking a couple swings at the position, seeing what you got, and moving forward, and that plan for 26, which seems abundantly clear at this point.
It does to me too. I thought it was also interesting. Mike Tomlin, when talking about the quarterbacks, he mentioned some specific schools they went on their tour on: Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas. All 3 of those quarterbacks: Riley Leonard, Will Howard, Quinn Ewers. All 3 of those guys, at least in my book, are day 3 quarterbacks, are guys that you would not try to jump up early for. If anything, I feel like that could confirm that that's kind of what they're looking at right now. And if another person like Jalen Milroe falls down to the 4th round, maybe that changes the equation. But I think that that's where they're actually looking for their quarterback right now. Now, could this be a smokescreen? Maybe, but I would bet if I was a betting man, I would bet on that actually being their quarterback coming from one of those 3 schools, or Louisville again on day 3 of the draft, rather than Colorado or Alabama or Ole Miss on day 2 of the draft.
Well, they are bringing Jackson Dart in for a top 30 visit, and they did have both Tomlin, Arthur Smith, and quarterbacks coach Tom Arth at the Alabama Pro Day too. So I do think they have interest in the day 2 quarterbacks. But Milroe and Dart are day 2 quarterbacks. And if someone wants to do something dumb and take them early, that's fine. But that's what they are. But I think, their interest in quarterback starts in the 2nd round. Milroe, Dart, Shook, Howard, Leonard, Ewers, Brady Cook. These are the players they've been connected to at that position. And most of those guys are day 2 guys or beyond. And I think that's where they're going to end up.
I think that would be ideal for the Steelers situation right now.
If you're real into like where Mike Tomlin has been and where the position assistants have been, if you go to SteelersNow.com and you click on our draft big board, we have all kinds of little logos next to every name. You can see like Jalen Milroe has a little Tomlin head and a little A for Tom Arth and a little football for this Reese's Senior Bowl, all there next to his name. It's really cool. Go check it out.
No, absolutely. That's one of the. I love you guys' tracker. It's a very simple thing to see. Hey, where have the Steelers been? Who have they talked to? Who have they prioritized? And who have they put all three of those tags on? Has Tomlin talked to them? Has the assistant talked to them? Did they get them? All those different things do add up as far as showing how interested they really are in some of these players. And sometimes again, it's important to note just for the smokescreen because Malik Willis was a guy that attracted a lot of attention and then was never picked by the Steelers. And so that's where I think it's always interesting to gauge, and it's why we try to take everything with a grain of salt. But it's more so reading the tea leaves. But hey, reading the tea leaves was something that was a metaphor that Omar Khan used about looking at how the Steelers have been handling this offseason. I want to talk about how he's handled the offseason and how that relates to their comp pick status for next year. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I remind you, this show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America, as Alan Saunders does his best Mark Caboli impersonation. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 in extra bucks that you can use on anything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. And remember, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. That's FanDuel.com to get started today on get in on all the college hoops action as well as all the baseball action that's going on right now. Lots of sports being played. Remember, if you're a new customer at FanDuel, sign up and you get $200 in bonus bets when you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders. Alan, okay, I gotta ask. Were you did you see Caboli looking like that at the table? Mark's our guy.
I'm sitting right next to him, and I asked the question. So I'm, giving really good eye contact back to Mike Tomlin, and I can't figure out why he keeps looking off to my side a little bit as Caboli's sitting right next to me. He wasn't asleep; he was just zoned out. I don't know.
Yeah,
long days in this media business. It's for the young. It's not for us vets like me and Kaboom.
Yeah, you guys certainly do. Y'all were there before 8 a.m., he said?
7:45 a.m. is when that media availability is. And I can promise you we were not in bed at 10.
Yeah. I understand that, but that's pretty wild. But yeah, so if you don't know what we're referencing, I suggest you just
go check Mike DeFavo's Twitter.
Yeah, go check our boy Mike DeFavo. He posted a very interesting picture,
and also the Art But Naked Sports Twitter account, which is one of the best things going. Comes up with some, I don't know, medieval painting to compare it to. It's hilarious.
It was rather hilarious. But Alan, let's get to the comp picks side of things, because I thought that was something that Omar Khan did kind of open up about, and I thought his answers gave me a little bit of okay, there's more. I wasn't sure that he'd give that much. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot. It wasn't like he said, oh, everything is lined up and they're definitely taking a guy next year. But he did kind of, I think at least, address it, at least acknowledge it. And he talked about, hey guys, you guys are smart. You guys can figure things out. Was this their plan going in? No. He's like, but did we factor that in once we saw how things were going? Yes. And I think it's one of those things where people need to understand that a big part, like there's planning and then there's reacting. And sometimes you can be a great planner, but if you don't react well to when things change or things go ways that you don't expect, or and opportunities arise that maybe you were like, oh, that's something there. I think that those can sometimes be the bigger yielding situations for results. If you're a GM, if you're a coach, if you're someone in this business that's trying to take advantage of a situation like the Steelers are, with the possibility of getting 4 comp picks next year.
Yeah, it's not like Omar Khan woke up on March 10th and was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to get 4 comp picks in 26. Like, it's not how it works. A lot of the decisions that were made that allowed them to be in those situations happened years before. Let me try to explain that a little bit. Dan Moore was let go in free agency and allowed to become a free agent because the Steelers drafted tackles in the first round of each of the last 2 draft classes. We knew the second that the Steelers went to the podium and said Troy Fautanu tackle Washington, that Dan Moore was going to be a free agent this offseason. Okay. But one free agent doesn't really mean anything. It just gets you one slot. But then you look at the situation of quarterback. They had a unique situation. All 3 players entering the final year of their contract. Seemed unlikely the Steelers were going to be able to bring back both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. They admitted as much immediately after the offseason. Art Rooney, in his first postseason press conference, said, "Hey, probably not going to happen. Probably going to get 1 or 2." Well, now you're like, okay, going to get one big contract with a free agent left tackle. Going to get another big contract on our side of the ledger when one of these quarterbacks signs elsewhere. Okay, now this is a thing. How do we maximize it? Okay, you can't decide you want to be in that situation. Oh, but you can get into that situation and say, okay, we have 2 pretty big contracts that be going the other way here. How do we make sure this benefits us significantly? And the Steelers have done that by signing players who don't count, like Darius Slay, making a trade for their biggest acquisition instead of signing a free agent in DK Metcalf. They're targeting a player in Aaron Rodgers who won't count. They're still sitting on a lot of cap space, and the draft is coming up, and any signing that happens after, I think it's April 28th or something like that, doesn't count. So if they make a move in May, that won't count against it. It sure seems like Omar kind of took this idea and ran with it. It wasn't like it was his plan coming into free agency. It was just something that the situation allowed him to do, and he's taking advantage of it.
And I think it's the smart thing to do if you're a GM, right? Like, hey, like you went in, you had some targets. Like, again, like they thought that they might be able to get Justin Fields. It didn't work out. And so their backup plan has become Aaron Rodgers. That's where they are now. But it's about, again, handling your situation, playing your cards as best you can. And again, him saying, reading through the tea leaves, being smart about it. To me, it continues to add up, Alan, to this is the plan to load up to go get your guy next year. And again, if things work out as they currently slated, I believe Dan Moore is projected to be represent a 3rd round comp pick. I think James Daniels represents a 6th round comp pick. I think Russell Wilson's current contract represents a 5th round comp pick. And then Justin Fields represents a 4th round comp pick. And then if incentives are met by Russell Wilson, he can bump up to a 3rd, pending on how things get paid out there in New York. But
playing time too, not just incentives. So like if Fields plays the entire season, that's being based on him only playing 6 games last year. So if he plays the entire season, he could move up and that kind of thing.
Well, so there you have it. So you might even have more 3rd round comp picks in the play there. Is that enough for the Steelers to be aggressive next year without selling the farm to go get their quarterback for the future? Let's say they finish around right where they have been for the past 5 years, 2019, 20, 21, somewhere around that range, and they need to trade up to get into the top 5. Top 5 is a lot different than the top 10. Let's say they want to be that aggressive. What kind of ammunition do they need to throw at that, and how does this help that?
Well, you probably need more than those comp picks to get into the top 5, but I think the comp picks existing allows the Steelers to be aggressive. Like, for example, if the Steelers want to trade their 2nd round pick to move up and they have a 3rd extra, okay, so they still have 2 day 2 picks. They just have 2 thirds instead of a 2nd and a 3rd. Usually when you're talking about draft picks and general managers, they want the number and they want them largely in the slot because it allows you to take advantage of clusters of talent at positions and be in positions to take guys when they fall. You don't want to have like big gaps between your picks. It's one of the reasons why the Steelers and Omar Khan talked today about getting back into the 2nd round this year and how they might try to do that. But so like if you trade your 2nd and you still have 2 thirds, and then you trade your 4th and you still have a 4th, and you trade your 5th and you still have a 5th, and you trade your 6th and you still have a 6th, that's a lot of draft capital to go up and make something happen. So yeah, I think that's absolutely enough to get into the top 5. Again, they will not just be able to use those 4 comp picks to get from 20 to 5, but they can trade 4 picks to get from 20 to 5. And you also don't have to make it one big jump either. In fact, you can do some of the work ahead of time. You can pick a team that you think is going to be bad and go trade for their 1st round pick ahead of time, move up that way. So there's lots of things you can do to move up in the draft with the capital. I think they have plenty. And the other part of it is depending on what the situation for the comp picks next year, they could be in line to get more in 27. And so if you're making one big swing, okay, if you decide you're making one big swing and this is going to be it, sure, borrow from 27. Like you can borrow from the future and set yourself up so that you hit the comp picks again next free agency.
Absolutely. Alan, thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Right next to Mark Cabali at every media availability ever, forever and ever. At @ASaunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. And you can find mine podcast, Steelers Afternoon Drive and Steelers Morning Rush on the Steelers Now YouTube page or anywhere you find podcasts.
Absolutely. He's Alan Saunders. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the social medias at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers. Back here tomorrow with another episode on the Locked On Steelers podcast.